Well, we're just getting started here. So, welcome to another episode. This is just a beautiful bike path. Um, Absolutely separated from anything. Wooded, beautiful trees on all sides. This is what biking's all about. So, I think this is, just one of the best. And if you notice down to the right, down below, there's another one down there. But I think that lower one is not for bikes. I think that's just for people, but I'm not sure. So it looks more dangerous, this path, than it is. For some reason, this view makes it look very, very small. It's actually quite wide. I never feel like I'm going to go off to the right or to the left. And this is a very popular walking path for people. So it's, sure, bikes can go here, but it's much more for people than for bikes. And if you try to look off to the left here, every once in a while you'll see that there's a campground here. That's a very popular sport here in Korea, the idea of a campground. So you've got this beautiful walking path right by this campground. So this is one of my, not probably one of my all-time favorite ones. I love this bridge to the right, this arcing wooden bridge, just beautiful. And if you look here down to the right, there's I think it's called a drone park, which I'm not sure why it's called, but there's a huge rose garden. And right now there's nothing there at all. Looks like a barren field. But in certain times of the year, that's a beautiful rose garden. And I'm not sure what this green thing is to the right, and down below. All this infrastructure, and I have no idea what that's doing. So anyway, it's a beautiful path. I love to follow this path right to its middle and then have my lunch right on the path. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's got infrastructure here. It's got bathrooms and things. So that's nice. I always wondered what that second little building was. I think that's for meetings and things, But you can see this is really straight, a nice path. It's got a nice fence here, so no chance of falling over. And just full of nature and people and, really good time. When it's really hot out, all those trees fill in, and it really is a shady, nice spot. I really do like this place. So I've been playing around with different formats, different things I want to do. This channel is apparently almost all just for me, but I love it when people join. So even if a few here and there. Again, I think of the people who watch as real people. So if 10 people join or 5, that's a lot of people to ride with. So I'm so happy with any amount who wants to ride. So here's my lunch spot. This exact bench or the other one. There's like 3 of them in a row here. It just makes a nice place to stop, and it's beautiful views. I think I just cut here. So beautiful views. I think what I cut out just then is the whole lunch stop, because this is kind of an edited video. Sometimes I do edited videos, and sometimes, I just take them raw. But I found that sometimes it's just too much waiting at lights and, too many breaks with nothing to do. And yes, this is shaking a little bit. It's because I'm setting up the bike, making sure everything's closed. And, it's really fun to bike, but there's a lot of things you have to make sure of. There's straps that you have to make sure aren't going to come loose, and go right into the spokes of the bike. So a lot of biking is just this, checking things and looking for something in your bag, snacks and drinks and things. So now we're taking off again, so that crazy little movement as you get going for the first time. So we're, going down this path again. And like I said, disconnected from traffic. You can see the traffic way off to the right. It's there, but totally safe here. No problems at all. And you really feel like you're kind of in nature. And again, if you look to the left, there's all this open space. So you don't feel trapped in either. So like I said, this is one of the reasons I bike. I like the relaxation, getting out in nature, being able to breathe and just relax. So all of those things are just awesome. I've been thinking a lot lately, the problems I'm having with biking and the goals of biking, because part of me wants to just have no goal at all, just have each ride just to relax, just to enjoy the ride. Don't go fast, don't go slow, just to enjoy the ride. So I'm stopping in front of this building here that I wanted to know what's inside. But I didn't go inside, I don't think. So I'm still very curious. And why so many bars over the windows? Is there something really valuable inside? So I'm not so sure at all. But again, here's one of those times where, I took a break, I guess, for some reason. And I don't know why I took such a long break. I only rode for 3 minutes. Maybe to check some things or something else. Sometimes you just have to adjust and, make sure your arm sleeves are okay and nothing's bunching up. So interesting bike here right in front of me. I don't know what that is. It's got really fat tires. So it's interesting. So again, the goals of biking and the problems I have with biking. It's interesting to try to work through all of these, because I'm still a very weak biker. I see these guys and they go on rides for all day. They ride for hours and hours and hours all day. But I can't do that. I ride for 2-3 hours and I'm done. So it's because of my age. I'm just weak. I've got bad knees. So all of those things kind of go against me. So it, kind of makes you wonder, like what is going to be my goal? Right now, I want my goal to be just to go farther and farther. That that adrenaline you feel, that rush you feel when you can go further than you thought that you could. So that's one of my goals. Because I keep stopping. Like here, I just stopped so quickly. And you notice at this time of year, I was putting on gloves. And I think that was the problem here. Because I am actually doing this recording, a couple of months after I did this ride. And so sometimes I like to record as I ride. You get the immediacy of it. But then some rides, I don't want to talk. I'm tired or, I'm enjoying the ride, but I don't feel like riding. And so I want to just concentrate on pedaling and riding and not on what to say. So sometimes this method works well too. And it's interesting for me to go back and remember the ride because I really don't remember what exactly it is that I did. So that's really interesting. Yeah. So, as the weeks go, I'm going to talk about some of the problems I have with writing. And, if you could chime in too, like I said, the YouTube algorithm isn't really recommending this channel very much, but I do it mainly for me. I really use these in the winter when I can't ride during the winter. And it's been such a pleasure to remember these times. The bright sunny days and This ride was slightly cold, I remember now, so it wasn't good ride, but cold. But I remember the ride itself was so comfortable, so nice and comfortable. So one of the problems I have is just the general body aches, which is really positive in a way, very positive. And the reason why is because if my muscles hurt, it means I'm getting a workout. I'm working out my muscles. So that's a really positive thing. I get a good workout. But sometimes, my neck hurts just a little bit. Sometimes my back is just a little bit sore. Maybe my ankles or my wrists get just that little bit sore. And it's not bad. And you sit up in the bike and you stretch and it's okay. It's not bad at all. So I remember coming to this spot and not knowing where to go. How do I cross this street? So the temptation is just to zip across right here. But it's a really busy, dangerous street, and nobody would expect me to do that. So I've learned to take a right here, and just go down a little bit. And there's a crosswalk, 1 block from here. So you got to be safe when you're riding. But the general body aches, like, should I take one of those pain pills, just so it relaxes your body a little bit? Do I just grin and bear it? What should I do? My general rule for general body aches is this. If it's not a sharp pain, if I don't go, ow, ow, I don't worry about it. I think it's just fine. One thing that's interesting, do you see how that light is flashing? Is that supposed to be flashing? Or is that a setting I have wrong, on my camera, my DJI? So who knows? I might want to look into that. Because that's other things I'm trying to incorporate. Like, do I put everything in Biking Korea? Like all the settings that I use and how I film? Or should I put that in my other channel, which is called Photography Korea? And so I'm trying to work those 3 things out because I have a lot of interests. I really like biking. I really like photography, but I really like studying out subjects and presenting them, and I also like baking. So it's really nice to have a number of different interests. It keeps you young and alert and excited about life. So I really found that I do have, a number of interests. So that's been quite good. So again, this is one of the questions I have. Should I film waiting at stop signs or should I delete it? I generally kept them in because this is what the ride was. And I want people to experience what I'm experiencing. So let me know in the comments if you have any preference in that. I always appreciate that. Here I have to make a choice. And this side is so interesting. There's like 5 paths all next to each other. So this is a path I've never taken before. And this seems to follow the road a little bit, So if you look, there's all these different ways to go. So I remember this ride now that I decided to go to this path, way down here by the river. But to the right, there's like 3 or 4 different ways to go in that little space. Different, kinds of trails and ways to go. Some for people, bikes are fine. This is a real bike path. I've never been on this one before. I've always taken the smaller ones. So this one's very interesting. And just beautiful views. You look down there to the river. Just such beautiful arcing view, the blue skies and all that. So what do you think of this picture? Again, I'm using my DJI, trying to get all the settings right. The picture seems to be pretty clear. It's a moving shot. I'm not static. And it just seems to be a good, clear shot. So the goals, what goals do you have when you bike ride? Is it just to go fast? Is it, to win a race? Is it just no goal, just enjoy the ride? I think all of it is good. I think all kinds are good. Yeah, so I'm kind of torn between goals right now. I do want to go faster, but yet I want to stop and take pictures and enjoy the scenery, smell the smells, hear the sounds, and that's part of my ride too. So I have to find that balance between the freedom to stop whenever I want and for whatever reason, and also the need that, sometimes the trail's not that exciting. Right now, it's quite beautiful, but other times it's like a trail I've been many times. So, it's not that exciting. Or some times of the year, it's kind of brown and not the greatest, but I still really enjoy the ride. So, those times, I kind of much more want to concentrate on my speed and my consistency. Because one goal I very clearly made is that kind of no matter what, I'm trying to keep it 14 kilometers per hour under any condition. So that seems to be a goal I've really tried to stick to. So I have a certain program, which again, these programs are just amazing. It's on my smartphone and it reads my speed. I don't even know how it's doing that. What an amazing bit of technology. And it's a free program, and it does a really good job. So this camera now is right on my bike. So, you're not going to see anything but the view in front of me. So when I have my, my neck mount, you can see the front of the bike. So now it doesn't even, I'm not even sure if it can tell whether I'm on a bike or not, because you don't see any parts of the bike. But anyway, that's one goal, is to try to make 14 kilometers per hour, on average. So, because times like this, you have to slow down because there's people, So I think 14 helps me to see everything pretty well. And then when I stop for photography sessions or to change settings or whatever, I can just pause, or, and I can pause the reading of the speed. So I'm really curious if anybody's watching. I really am. What is your goal when you ride? Because some people, their whole entire goal is to zen out. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the trees and that tree I'm looking at right now. I think that's beautiful. I'm absolutely amazed by trees, how pretty they are. And there's this other one coming up. Their shape and their color, their permanence. They just stay in that spot for 50 years. I'm amazed. I love trees. And also, you see the bridge here. I'm amazed by bridges, even ugly ones. That's not the prettiest bridge, but I still love it. Just amazed by bridges. And so a lot of times I'll stop just to take pictures of trees and the river and bridges. So sorry, but that just seems to be what fascinates me. Nature, trees, the river, and bridges. I wish I could take more pictures of people, but for doing this for YouTube, to stop and make someone the focus is difficult. So it's no problem if I just run by people if they're not the focus. It's kind of a weird world we live in, isn't it? By the way, look at the left, that map there. Those look like they've been there for 30 or 40 years. I wonder how accurate they are. It's all worn out. Some of it has rust or even mold or dirt. It's really old signs. So you wonder if I could trust them. But also they're all in Korean. So I don't really understand them anyway. So those people have the goal just to enjoy the ride. Like they won't even film it, So that's very tempting to me. Don't try to get better. Just enjoy. And so I'm trying to find that balance. I like to keep at 14 kilometers per hour. That seems to be a goal I can do and still enjoy it. So, maybe I could do both. The other kind of goal is to deal with the problems with biking. And again, this aches and pains problem. Better life through drugs. Should I take a pill? Because some of these pills really help my aches and pains. Does make the ride a little bit more enjoyable. I have a very upright bike. We call it like a Dutch style bike. It isn't a Dutch bike, but it's Dutch style, which means I'm not leaned over, like I don't have, what are they called? The handlebars that you can hold them at the top and hold them down below. They kind of curve down to the bottom. What are those called? I don't have that kind. I have what's known as swept back handlebars. And, they make you up a lot. So my bike is terrible for aerodynamics. I'm not going to win any races on my bike, But to me, that's a real positive. Because if I get to higher speeds, I'm not doing it by having a light aerodynamic bike. I'm doing that because I'm putting in the work, So I really like that. So if I can get it up to 22 kilometers per hour, I did that from my own power. So I feel proud of that. I feel good with that, Like winning a race because you have a light bike, or you play around with aerodynamics, or my helmet's aerodynamic or something. Those kind of things just don't interest me. What interests me is getting a good workout, not getting hurt, don't over push myself, but it's all coming from me. And so, like I said, I feel proud then. I feel good about it. So I don't know how you feel. Well, why don't we stop and we'll just enjoy the ride for a while. Sometimes I like to just insert some music and kind of zone out for a few minutes. Let's enjoy some music. Yeah, so we've been riding for about 30 minutes or so, almost 31. So it's kind of funny. I was recording and I pressed record and then immediately I must have stopped it. So one of those interesting things about making videos, especially ones where I want it to be immersive, is to go back and fix those and make those perfect. And I don't like to do that. I like to just keep going, so it's not perfect, you know? So hopefully everything's going to line up and it's going to, work itself out. So we're going down and just enjoying the ride. Again, to the left, I don't know, I just find the views of this river just to be so pleasing and comforting, Sometimes this river is like a trickle, and sometimes it's a river. It's not bad, but it's never really big enough to use a boat on. So that's been kind of a drag, not the greatest. I would love to take a boat down the river, but it's enough. I mean, this is when I went here, it's not the highest it can be. So, normal river sized, I think it's fine. Now, here we're coming up to, if you see in the distance, this half worked on bridge, it's got some pieces missing. I've been watching them make this bridge for like a year and a half. And so every time I drive by, it gets closer and closer to being finished. So I remember this a couple of months ago, and I did a ride a couple of days ago, and it's almost touching now. Like you see these pieces that are really far apart, they're now almost touching. So it's been really a fun experience to watch them make this bridge. Now, I'm not even sure why they're making it, why it's so important to have a bridge here, but it's been like a year and a half, something like that. Long time. So I like to stop here. I think I stopped here and took some pictures of it. Maybe I'll show you those if I can find those. So I took some pictures, tried to see what it was like. And again, this is my break time. Should I fast forward through these times? Or, you see the breeze going through the trees and the cars going by. I think it's kind of interesting. And this is what I was talking about, like your goals in biking. I love stopping and just enjoying where are they with this bridge. Kind of a nice view of this bridge. I can see them actually building it, and it's what I experienced. And so, I want us to all experience the same thing together. Because I hear you, like some of you have trouble with mobility. Oh, I can really respect that, I mean, a few weeks ago, I hurt my knee, and I couldn't ride. I know. Actually, it was funny because I couldn't walk very well. I was limping on it, but I could ride just fine. Really funny, So I really respect people who have mobility issues. They can still ride their bikes at home. It's a really healthy thing to do. So don't feel bad about that. It's all wonderful. Any way you can get out and go. And like I said, if you can go for 30 minutes, maybe 15 minutes out and 15 minutes back, that's all you can do. You have knee problems or foot problems or whatever it is, that's wonderful. Go for 30 minutes. Don't worry about what anybody says. It's all great. By the way, I'm trying something new. Like I was using CapCut before. And so CapCut, I could play it on my big screen, and I could record. So that means the timing, you know, could work out. Here I'm finding it's a little difficult because I edit on my smartphone, you know, and I do the voiceover on my smartphone, but I want to see it on the big screen. So I'm still playing with how to do this. I guess one way is, just run my phone for an hour, the whole length of this video. So that's one option, But I think the one that I found actually works a little bit better. Make several files, there's no reason to record nothing because I'm going to, add some music later. And so I think that's the way to go. And then, when I get to a certain point on the film, then I can announce where I am. I think that may work. But it's all new. That's one thing I love about having hobbies and things we love, because I can just make up the rules, So sometimes, I can try 2 or 3 or 4 or 7 different things until I find what works. Well, it's getting really crowded here. Look at all these people, And so this mixed use of bikes and people, and I see scooters here sometimes, things like that. It's funny, there's my light keeps trying to pop in at the left-hand corner. So that was a problem. So in later videos, what I've done is I've just taken off the light because I figure I don't need the light until I need the light. And the light also has a way to charge up things. So I don't need that attached to my bike all the time. So I just store that away nicely in my bag. And, I'll just pull it out the few times I need it. Because you don't need a light very often. But when you need it, you really need it. So I just keep it charged up and ready to go. Pull it out as I need. So again, I still love this trail. Far enough away from the cars. You're not affected by them. To the left, a beautiful river. It's all kinds of green and grass and trees. I just really like this. It's a really nice way to travel. So is this a long ride? It's like a little over an hour, one way. And then it's another hour and something another way. So I guess back to my goals is I want to increase that. Like, can I go 2 hours there and then 2 hours home? And you're always worried that you'll go 2 hours there and not have enough power to get home. You're just exhausted. So that's a worry to me, going too far. But eventually I would like to, do these long distance treks. There's all these trails you can go to in Korea, and some of them take, a week to do the whole trail. And eventually I'd like to be able to do those. But, I have limitations. My knee's not that great. So I worry a little bit. But I guess I shouldn't worry, though. If you're having trouble, you pull off into the next small town. My bike folds up. You just throw it in a bus and come home. No problem at all. I don't know why I worry. My bike can't be packed very heavy. So I can't really use my bike for tent camping. I can't pack 3 days worth of food and tents and sleeping bags and, cooking stove and all this stuff. My bike won't take the weight. Right now, my bike with just a day trip is, I've still got some space, but, it's within 15 pounds of maxing out or something. So it's just not made for this. And I'm really worried about maxing it out. I don't want to, I don't want to stress it too much or, All right. So I'm really enjoying this ride. Why don't we take another break and we'll just enjoy some music and the ride some more. Let's enjoy. said that 12. Why are you here, Walter? You just hate me. Oh, all right, we just hit 50 minutes. So we're going for 50 minutes there so we can coordinate the times. Because what I did is that I did a recording and I stopped it. I'm going to save that as a file. And now we can coordinate this again. So this is kind of a little field area it goes into. I don't remember sports fields here. I think this was growing something last time, but I guess I don't really remember that. So, we're just going around this little field here. And again, real nice feeling of space. I could just stay up at the trail up top, but it's just nice to get different views and, just different feelings. And so again, I think they're building some kind of sports complex or just fields here, which is a good idea. There was really nothing here or, very small, vague, somebody growing something vaguely here. So kind of an interesting area. I think the river's still to the left of us, so you can't really see it too well right now. So what else is going on in the biking world? Yeah, it's hard to get a feeling of this date. But I remember, like I said, this is a few months ago, and it was cold. Not freezing at all, but cold. And so I had to wear gloves and, bundle up just a little bit. And so, as the years go by, I want to bike earlier and earlier. And, the big question is, can you bike during the winter? And so I'm just really worried about going down. You hit an ice patch or black ice. Black ice is the worst because it doesn't look like ice at all. And suddenly you go down, so I really worry about hurting myself. I mean, these trails are meant to be grippy. I can feel that. So they're not slick at all. So if I stick on the trails, maybe it might be possible, but it just seems too dangerous. Like, why would I want to do this? It seems to be too dangerous. So I probably won't, So again, that's one of the reasons I make these videos. And so I have a whole collection of them to use during the winter. And this upcoming winter, I vaguely rode 2 or 3 times a week. But I want to see, can I ride literally every day? Maybe an hour, So if I did, let's say 4 or 5 days a week, something like that, not 2 or 3, bump it up to 4 or 5. You do need a couple of days break sometimes. What a cool thing it was to ride and watch these videos, and you look out my window and it's snowing, or it's, sleeting and freezing rain and snowing, but I'm still biking and enjoying these videos. So that was kind of neat. So I'm just stopping for a second on this bridge, you know. Yeah, and from my perspective, I wasn't looking at the view. I was just taking a break. But now I look at this view, and this is a really pretty view. I wish I'd gotten some pictures of it. You know, the bridge, and then it goes off into this trail, gently arcing to the right. It's got trees. To the left is a little small piece of the river, which is beautiful. You've got this bridge, which is really nice. So I wasn't thinking anything when I stopped here. And look, you see I'm wearing gloves. And so I never wore my big, thick winter gloves, but I wore gloves and I needed them. It's funny too that how thirsty you get even in the winter. I really got thirsty. So I'm not sure if I've taken this left little place. And that's another beauty of biking. It's so much easier to explore. I can go down roads and paths and bike paths and dirt paths. I can go on the beach. I can go to so many different places. So that was cool. Now again, after a rain, it's been a long time. It's like, can I make it through this? Can I make it? And yeah, I can make it. It's kind of funny. My bike has big tires and big fenders. And so it's really easy to ride through things like that. I've ridden through some really big, deep puddles. Like this one that we're coming up to. I can ride right through that. No problem at all. I don't even think about it. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, so this left fork right by the river, I've never been on before. It was kind of pretty. I did kind of enjoy that. I've been thinking a lot how to keep up with these biking videos. And, I've mentioned this before. Should you go with the YouTube algorithm and all these things? Should I do it? Am I making these for myself or am I making this for my audience? And for me, it's kind of both. I love biking. I want to share it. I want to share what I've learned. I want to hear what other people have learned. So, it's for me and my audience. And isn't that the way to go with YouTube? Some people say, no, you just make them purely for your audience. You can do all this research, figure out what people want to know, and make a video on that. That's interesting. And maybe I'll change this channel more to that model. But right now, I just want to go for bike rides. I'm going to be out anyway. I might as well film them, And so that's what I've been. So if you enjoy Korea, learning about biking, we're going to add some things probably about photography, things like that, So, yeah. I think here we were stuck because we didn't know which way to go. And so I think if I go too far, I'm going to get lost. All right, let's take another break and let's listen to some music. All right, so we're at an hour and 45 seconds. 1 hour plus 45 seconds. So I thought I'd just wrap up this video. So what did we learn today? Well, again, it's about setting goals for biking. You know, what goals do we want to set? And my goals seem to be to keep it 14 kilometers per hour, kind of no matter what. That's one of the biggest goals I wanted to set. And, you know, another goal is to kind of deal with the problems that run up from biking. And we talked about aches and pains. And again, for me, aches and pains are good because that means I'm actually getting a workout in. You know, so aches and pains are not bad for me at all. As long as they're not a sharp pain. Because if they're a sharp pain, there's a problem there. And so I need to deal with that. You know, we dealt with a little bit. Do I make these videos for myself? Do I make them for YouTube? You know, and for me, it's clearly a little bit of both. You know, I'm riding, I enjoy it. I'll be out here anyway. But I also want to make some for, you know, for you guys, who's ever listening. You know, so it's kind of like one of those things. How do I do both? So I haven't really figured out YouTube yet. You know, but I'm going to ride anyway, no matter if anybody listens. But I hope that they do. You know, so I've enjoyed this ride, and I hope you have too. Any comments? I'd love to know what you want me to do in future episodes. Do you like this kind of material? Should I do something completely different? You know, I mean, I'll do something that has nothing to do with me, just what other people like. That's awesome too. So, you know, would you rather that instead of just a continuous ride, I keep breaking it up? So let me know what you want in the comments. Please let me know and be honest. You know, I enjoy all kinds of comments. All right, and we'll just finish out this video with, you know, a few minutes of music and just enjoy the rest of the ride. Been my pleasure to hang out with you guys for a while, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you later. Cheers.